Hello, and welcome to A Course of Love. We're reviewing chapter 30, and it's a short chapter called Being Present. But what a powerful chapter it is. In fact, if you just could master one chapter of this entire work, and this was the chapter that you chose, you would still get where you need to go. So, although it's short, it's so potent. We begin by talking about the concept of being present versus being. Your entire life, you've been searching for self-definition, self-actualization, self-love, self-realization. How can we say this? Because that's what we've all been looking for. Just really trying to figure out, who am I? What am I doing here? What am I supposed to do? So then the question is, where's your being while you're searching and trying to learn about yourself? Obviously, you're never not being. So your sense of being is always there. No matter what other activity is going on, you're still being. So now we're going to concentrate on being present and what that is in comparison to the fact that you always are. So next we talk about learning, because of course that's what we've been trying to do in our search for self-definition, is trying to learn, who am I? What am I doing here? So in the past you viewed learning as a preparation for an eventual outcome, as something to achieve or attain. So when I study myself and I study, what's true about me and how do I love myself and why am I the way I am, we're doing that because we want to improve something, get better at something, get some kind of a result in the future. I want to either be happier, or I want to be more adept at interacting with people. I want to be more successful. I want to be more peaceful. We're looking for some kind of an outcome from the learning that we're doing. So he tells us in verse 2, when you learn in order to contribute something to your work and your world, you bypass yourself. So when we're learning for this eventual outcome, this improvement, we're actually bypassing the knowledge of the self. We're employing the brain, we're searching through books, techniques, people we consider wise, and we are actually focusing away from the self. But now your learning needs to take on a new focus. Instead of learning to get somewhere, claim your learning for yourself. Now, this is a different kind of learning. This isn't about assimilating knowledge. You learn who you are by being present in each experience. So again, we come to this direct experience component. It's not about learning from a master, assimilating material. It's not about acquiring knowledge in the traditional way. It's about being present within your own experience, witnessing what's there and having that direct relationship with your life, basically, with your experience. Verse 4 tells us being in relationship is being present. Being present has nothing to do with time as you think of it. So we automatically think of time because present tense, we've made this association with present. But really what he's talking about here is really being present in your own two shoes, if you will. Being present for your own life, showing up for whatever your experience is in each moment with focus and attention. What we're looking for is universal consciousness. Now, this term universal consciousness is really just another way of expressing what I have come to call the one thing. It's the same thing as when he talks about God, love, relationship, union, joining, all of those words are pointing to the same thing. Now we've added another term, universal consciousness, because there's really only one thing going on here. And we're calling it by a lot of different names so we can come at it from different perspectives in order to get a clear picture of what it is. So he goes on to say that universal consciousness is knowing self. Why is that? Because that's who you are. You are universal consciousness. Who you experience and perceive as being self is actually contained within universal consciousness, which is the fullness of your identity. So when you know yourself, you know universal consciousness, God, love, all that is. And how do we know self? We know self by being present. So this process is it's a dance of the finite and the infinite, back and forth, the acknowledgement, the awareness of both things being true. My finite experience of feeling my own fingers, feeling my body, feeling this moment, noticing what's in my present experience allows me to be in relationship with all that is, with the infinite. So it's a joining of the finite and the infinite. It's like the eye of a needle. Just that little tip, tip, tip. When we're on that tip, we are experiencing both, and it is pure joy. Verse 6, universal consciousness is being in relationship or joining. It is the true self, the known self, in all its glorious relationship with life. All matter is born and dies. All life is forever. The known self recognizes this and begins to act in accordance with this knowing. So now we're getting deeper into the finite experience of, here I am, this character, this human being who has a history, who was born at a certain time, the recognition that I'm going to die at some unknown time, and what happens then. So what he's telling us is, when we make a practice so that we have this experience of this finite and infinite dance, and we have that direct experience, not in a belief system, but in actually experiencing it, which then brings it to the level of knowing that I am universal consciousness, knowing that I am more than this finite experience. And when we come there, we are in relationship with this known self, this bigger energy. And then we act in accordance with that. We don't act like someone who has this frail, suffering life that could be this little candle that could be blown out in an instant. And we continue with that same belief, that concept. This world is based on a foundation of fear, stemming from the belief in a finite life. It's, that recognition that humans have, like, okay, we all will die. There you go. But the entire system that we're operating in depends on self-identification as limited to the personal self. So as long as you think that you are just the character that you are playing, and, time's running out for you, and you're going to cease to exist at the end of this, at least as you know yourself, then you are operating from a foundation of fear. You can't help it. Who's not going to be afraid if they're going to die? That's like the big fear. But when you know the truth of who you are, which, by the way, you can only know by experiencing your bigness, your infinite self. That the form you now occupy is a temporary expression, that the life you are will never cease to be, your foundation can shift. So when you have this experience of recognizing your oneness with the infinite, now you can come at this from another angle because you're not afraid anymore. You recognize, I'm part of the oneness. I'm never going to cease to exist. I'm life itself. The energy that I am is not contained within this character, in this role, in this illusory world. The energy that I am is something way bigger and less definable than that. From this point, then, you can be in relationship with life as opposed to relationship with matter. Now, let's look at what that might look like. If I'm in relationship to matter, I'm concerning myself with what I'm going to have for lunch, how my feet feel in these shoes, who's coming to knock on the door, all of those things, those things in our world of matter, our finite world, that's where all my identification is going. When I recognize and I live at that needle point of being present, I'm still experiencing all of those things, but it's from a completely different point of view. I'm experiencing them without attachment. And from that place, I am now in relationship with life as it unfolds in front of me, instead of relationship with matter. And here's, the huge statement that we're really trying to get here. Being present is the key that unlocks the door to knowing yourself, to living from universal consciousness. So it's really pretty simple, and it's certainly accessible to anyone at any time. In fact, do it right now. Just really be present in this moment. Recognize what's true in your experience right now. Recognize what's going on in your body. Recognize how you feel. Recognize whatever experience is presenting itself to you in the present moment. And you are there. You're at that sweet spot where the finite and the infinite intersect. Love is infinite in nature, with no beginning and no end. And that's really what you are. You're love, or the one thing, or God, or universal consciousness, or whichever term works best for you. That is infinite in nature. Doesn't begin, doesn't end. Always has been, is who you are. Verse 9, love is a demonstration and a description of universal consciousness, of being in relationship. So when you're at this needle point, this tipping point, and you're in relationship with what is right now, you're demonstrating that you're in relationship with life. And all relationship is relationship with love. So we come round it from different points of view, and it's all pointing to the same thing. It seems almost impossible that all of this could happen on that one little tiny point of just being present. But of course, it's the grand design. It's perfect. It's exactly as you intended it to be, and is so completely accessible to everyone at all time. He moves on to talking about, we've already talked about the death and the idea of you being temporal and identifying with the personal self as being something that's going to get in the way of your shift. Now he's talking about another concept that really gets in the way. So here's a big one. The belief in gain and loss is a cornerstone of your perception. You've made this belief your ruler by abandoning the laws of God. So what does that mean? The belief in gain and loss, that if I give something, then I'm going to have less of something. If I do this, then that's going to happen. It's really the laws of cause and effect, where we have put ourselves in the driver's seat, at least within our own perception, so that if I work hard, I'm going to be successful. And if I'm successful, I'm going to feel secure. If this happens, then I'll have that. You're always waiting for something you don't have, working toward that, putting your energy toward that. So if I'm good, I'll be rewarded. If I'm successful, I'll have security. If I have love, I will be happy. Whatever fill in the blank it is. This looks really probably logical and familiar to you, because it is a cornerstone of the world that we live in. The idea that I have this power to create a good outcome. Notice outcome. We're talking about future again. So what we're trying to do here is to dislodge that idea. Verse 12. The laws of God are the laws of love. Within the laws of love, there is no loss, but only gain. Now, we talked about this at greater length in the last chapter. But when we're coming from the laws of love, so let's take it back to the present moment experience, which is really what we're trying to focus on in this chapter. So how does that look within the concept of the present moment? So if I'm present in my life right now, and something is presented within my life, someone says, will you help me with this? And I feel like, yeah, I'll help you with this. I'm present while I'm doing that. I can only gain. I'm not trying to control. I'm receiving the gift that the universe has for me in this present moment. So whatever that gift is, when I accept it and own it and respond to it in the present moment, I'm guaranteed that nothing will be lost. There's only gain. When I'm present, only gain is possible. God's laws rule the universe. It's impossible for them to go unfulfilled. They don't change. They've not been replaced by the laws of man. This is only true in your perception. So the only thing that needs to be changed is not the law itself, because that's immutable. You've never experienced anything but gain. You've never experienced loss, believe it or not, because that can't change. What you have done is perceived that you have experienced loss, perceived that it is possible. So all that this course is trying to do is to change your perception to truth, to what's actually happened. And the only place that that can happen is by being present in every moment. So that is the end of this chapter. Hope that you got something from it. And the following chapter will talk about how the mind works. So we'll follow up on this idea of changing your perception and working within the concepts of the mind. Thanks for joining me.